What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Tanner Farmstead podcast. I've got my friend James Clarke with me, Clarke's Greens, and really excited to have him on today. I don't want to spoil it for y'all, and I'll let him do the introduction, even though I kind of want to introduce him. But tell us where you're growing, man, and just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on today, man. I really appreciate it. This is a really exciting time. My name is James. I'm the owner-operator of Clarke's Greens here in San Antonio, Texas. And I basically grow on urban lots inside the city. I've been doing this now full-time for coming up on a year and a half, but I've been growing food for about 15 years, just practicing and experimenting and trying to get better and better. And about 3 years ago, I started to really get aggressive with it and try to get more and more food in the ground. And in the late 2022 went full time, and it's been full time ever since. So I currently grow on my main lot, which is a old neighborhood and a big lot. So I grow in my backyard. It kind of wraps around my house right now. I basically speak in like square footage and not really acres as far as grow space, but I grow year round. I produce a livable income off of what I grow, and I currently grow on two lots: my main lot where I live, my residence, and then I have another lot about 15 minutes, a little bit ways down the ways, and it's a front yard where the house is in the back, and they gave us their front yard to basically grow food, and we made it into like a little farm annex. So current space that I'm growing on is about 0.16 of an acre is total grow space. That includes some area for some chickens as well. And what that looks like as far as rows is 5 70-foot rows in production that are 4 feet wide, 6 30-foot rows that are 4 feet wide, and then 5 50-foot rows that are the standard market garden 30-inch wide beds. And I did that on the other lot in the front yard just because it was going to be front and center. And while I'm good with jumping over a 4-foot row because I'm taller and working off of that, I wanted it to be a little more streamlined and visually appealing. My farm in the back looks great also, but being that it was in somebody's front yard, I wanted to really be able to standardize a lot of things that I use and not have to kind of make certain parts and things fit because it was just going to be right in front of somebody's house. So I do have some standard beds, but obviously I'm working with like 3 different sizes of beds, so it gives me some flexibility with what I do. And grow year round right here in San Antonio, Texas. One high tunnel. It's a 70-foot by 16. It's definitely bootstrapped. I got it used from my buddy Mike up in Dallas. Shout out to Mike Bell, my buddy. I was able to pick up a used tunnel from him when I first kicked it off, and it's been a game changer. High tunnel has been amazing, and it's definitely got some mileage on it, but it serves its purpose for what it is and for how I grow. It's been good so far. It's been really great so far.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So, and just for clarification, for anybody that's listening that may not be super familiar with market gardening beds or rows, the standard width of a market garden bed is 30 inches. Some people go 4 feet. Some even go up to 5 feet. But I would say, would you agree that the most common width is 30 inches or 30 to 36 inches?
Let's see. You're back.
Can you hear me?
I got you.
Oh, cool. So I was saying that, for people that may not understand when we're talking about rows or beds, the standard width of a market garden bed, generally, most people use 30 to 36 inches.
Yeah.
Some people go up to 4 feet, some will go even wider, up to 5. But would you agree that the most common would probably be 30 to 36 inches?
Yeah, 30 to 36, and most equipment is built for those also. Like when you look at for a great example, broad forks. When you look at most broad forks, most even equipment and machinery that you would look for market gardening styles, it's all geared kind of towards a 30 or 36-inch bed. And it makes sense. I understand why they do it. I used to do all 30 or 36-inch beds, but I had so many more walkways, and especially with the tunnel, I wanted to really maximize my space in the tunnel because I had like 2.5 foot walkways, which didn't make any sense. So I made 1 foot walkways and expanded the rows, and that gave me the ability to just grow so much more greens in there and just really push the limits of what I can produce in the high tunnel. So, but yeah, standard inch 30, 36. Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes sense when you're looking with space, you can gain more grow space by reducing your amount of walkways and going wider with the bed.
Yeah.
But you went, and this,
I know, like Jesse Frost talked about it.
No, you're good.
Sorry, buddy. I talked over you.
I know we've got a lag with the technology a little bit, so
yeah.
So I wanted to back up a little bit. So you're growing in more of an urban context. I would say kind of similar to the way Curtis Stone kind of got going with, finding urban lots to grow on and working that out. And I think you're a prime example of it being successful. Like, you're doing this full time. So what are kind of the crops that you're focusing on, growing at that scale, to be profitable and make enough money to obviously live comfortably?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely did like a Curtis Stone model and kind of hybridized it to fit. And I'm going to answer your question about the crops. It's really important. But what's key with it, the way it works, is like there's so many different people that you can learn from, and you get to take all these different bits of information and make it fit for your context. So when I found Curtis Stone and like I looked at how like Josh Satin grew, and I obviously found some other guys to learn from as well, and obviously met Mike, and I was able to kind of put together this idea. But definitely from Curtis Stone, I was able to look at growing in the urban environment and inside the city limits without having to get on any kind of land. And to be able to be profitable and consistent, you have to grow certain crops, especially in small scale. So I had to think of what I wanted to grow in order to maintain a consistent amount of income. And for me, it started with salad mix. I know a lot of people talk about starting with, salad mix or greens. Some people say other produce, but it really boiled down to what I could make money off of immediately and then consistently without having to wait for spring crops, because spring crops are a great value add as well. We make a lot of money each year on tomatoes and peppers and okra, but it came down to starting with getting really good at lettuce and salad mix. And I just started with basically Cherokee, Near, and Benefine, which is like a frisee. And those were my 3 lettuces that I started with. I didn't even touch Salad Nova at the beginning, and I just practiced with those and got really good with those. And I was swimming in lettuce. I had to like give it away, and I didn't know what to do with it because I had so much. I was just trying to give it away, and I was like, okay, I've got an idea now and what I can do. So for me, it started with lettuce and greens. And as soon as I had a really good grip on growing those consistently, I added more. So I got into some Salad Nova and, a type of romaine and some mustard greens. And I'm just kind of wrapping in greens and heavy greens as well. Some, baby Swiss chard and, things like that, but just really focusing on greens and heavy greens production. And then I got into spring crops as well. But before that, it's also important to note that I grow a lot of microgreens as well. So I was able to not only put lots of greens in the ground and lots of lettuce and salad mix in the ground, but I also was able to re-ramp up my microgreen program. And I started doing microgreens in like 2017, and I just practiced and dabbled with it, and it was really fun and really cool, and it worked. And for whatever reason, I stopped. And I think I stopped because I started focusing on like lettuce and other crops, and I just was like, oh, I got micros down, and I just put it on the shelf. And then I got back into it, and I was like, well, I can do both. And as I was making the transition, it made sense for me to try microgreens because they were a quick growing crop. Most of the ones that you're going to sell, most of the ones that anyone's going to sell are like 9 to 15 days, usually, depending on your climate and context. Pea, sunflower, radish, broccoli, maybe a couple of other ones, but they're pretty quick turnarounds. So I was able to start with a selection of microgreens. And then as those were continuing to produce and starting to produce, I was working on getting more greens in the ground. So I was doing microgreens inside. I was doing salad mix and lettuce and greens outside. And then I had a big cucumber harvest from the season prior, and I made basically pickles. I was swimming in cucumbers. I don't know why I grew so many, but it was as a test, and I grew so many, I started making pickles. So when I first got to market in late December of 2022, I had microgreens, I had pickles, and I didn't even have lettuce yet because I was waiting for it to grow. And eventually, towards the end of the year, early January, I got salad mix on my table, and I literally started with just salad mix and micros and whatever pickles I had left that I had made. We got into spring crops, tomatoes, okra, peppers. I don't do a lot of squash. We deal with vine borers here. I do herbs, so like fresh basil packs, sometimes rosemary and a little bit of lavender. But it really boils down to lots of greens, tomatoes, peppers, okra, cucumbers. I do carrots seasonally, but very seasonally. I'll do some radishes hit or miss, but not really very often. You can't count on me to be the radish guy. And occasionally a couple of other spring crops like or bunch crops like bunching greens or things like that. But that's basically my crop selection. I sell salad greens, microgreens, and a bunch of spring and summer vegetables and fresh herbs. I do sprinkle in other stuff here and there, but as far as like what is making money, I'm really focused on 80-20, and I just really focus on what is going to produce consistently. So I know that I can count on having cool, unique lettuces and salad mixes and microgreens and still have a full table by incorporating the two or making cool blends or having some bunches or some head lettuce. And that gives me flexibility to always have a full table even before spring or even fall vegetables hit. So that's what I grow as far as my crop selection. Yeah. And then I have chickens. So pardon me, I do have chickens for eggs. They produce very consistently, and eggs go for a pretty good price here, especially since they're organic, non-GMO, all that fun stuff. I mean, we buy the really fancy feed, and they get all of our microgreen waste and stuff. So yeah, eggs, some value-added products, microgreens, lettuce, and spring and summer crops. That was probably long, but yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, I think the cool part is that the way that your lettuce mix or spring mix is unique is that like it's ever evolving based on the seasons. So it's not just lettuce, or it's not just a spring mix with lettuce. It's like you're throwing in mustard greens, you're throwing in arugula, you're throwing in microgreens. So I think, do you feel like that keeps kind of the buyers on their seat or on the edge of their seat and kind of excited of like, oh, it kind of gives them variety? Like, do you have good feedback from mixing it up?
Yeah, I do, and it's been really cool. I took the idea. I thought it was actually Jody Roebuck from New Zealand who came up with it, who does his mix. He calls it shoots and leaves, I think. And I found out through like listening to Curtis Stone. I think it was Curtis Stone who started doing it, like incorporating microgreens into a salad mix, and that gave me an idea of just keeping a constant rotation actually, and not making it just one thing. And so I kind of made a hybrid version of that, and I call it leaves and shoots. And it changes as the season changes. And I tell my customers that come by the booth and anyone that buys from me directly, like, hey, this is our salad mix today. It's a 9-way blend. What I had on the table at the last market was 4 types of lettuce. It was mustard. It was frills. It was a little bit of kale, spinach. It had some arugula, and then it had at least one type of microgreen in it. So I've had my mix changes as the seasons change. That way, I'm not locked into constantly having to produce, mere or just arugula or just mustard greens. And it gives me more flexibility with it. So it keeps it exciting. It keeps people coming back. And they get to see the mix change as the seasons change, which is really cool because it's not going to be just spring mix or arugula, which everyone does. And that's totally fine. There's a lot of farmers at the market that will just bring out spring mix or bags of arugula. And it's funny about arugula is nobody wants really just arugula until you don't have it. And then they're like, oh, can I get some arugula? And it's like, I've had that for 6 months. And, but that's another story for another day. But you get to see the salad mix change. So we're going from we went from arugula and mustard greens into more lettuce, into more like some kale additives and spinach and some baby chard and beet tops. I actually grow beets for the greens for the tops and not for the beet. They're a beautiful additive to my mix. They're colorful, they're flavorful, they're healthy. And you get to see it change. So right now I've got tons of lettuce coming in. So my salad mix is lettuce heavy with a little bit of arugula. And as we get into the summer and heats up, it'll go more arugula or mustard or frills, more of those heat tolerant lettuces like Cherokee and Mir. And I'll sprinkle in some Salanova, a little bit, but it's going to be, it adapts as the season changes. And that gives me flexibility because crops fail, lettuce when it's 110 degrees is hard. and that's just being realistic. It's fun. It's never a adult moment, but when you're trying to grow like salad mix in the middle of summer here, it gets up to about 105, 110 consistently for 60 days at a time. So you have to adapt, and the flexibility of that salad mix gives me the ability to kind of move around.
Yeah, and I think it's something to note too, that for people listening, like a lot of people in your growing zone take the summers off, correct?
Correct, and I don't.
Yeah, you
And
push
people
through.
are already talking about taking this summer off, and I'm like, I'll just note that, grow more, and capitalize. I guess you could call it. I mean, I don't know, man. I would love to at some point, but I got my foot on the gas pedal right now, man. I'm trying to grow this thing, and I want to see what I can produce consistently. And I still take days off, so like I'm not going to work 7 days a week, 80 to 100 hours. I'm going to take time off. I really like to spend Monday resetting, but I'm not going to take the summer off. I'm going to be producing, and if I'm the only one, if I'm one of only a couple of farms there, then that means I can capitalize on that. So I celebrate the ones that can do it, but I use that as an opportunity because here you can still grow food. You can grow a decent amount of food here in the spring, even in the 110-degree weather. It just changes. Your crop selection has to adapt.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that I feel like the summer, and I know we've had conversations,
Yeah,
off of this Zoom call about the summertime. I feel like July and August, I would say for most farmers, especially anywhere in the South, it just it's just a grind. It's hot, crop struggle. You got pest pressure.
yep.
The whole fairy tale, the whole fairy tale and excitement of the spring has faded
Yeah,
fast, and
yeah.
and you're kind of at that point of like questioning, like, holy crap, like,
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah. You get some days out there, man. It gets warm. You start. It gets warm. We'll leave it. And you start to have to battle with that for sure. But if you adapt, what I found from last summer is if you adapt your crop selection and just be honest, you can eliminate that stress. If you're going to grow through the summer, if you're going to be kind of that glutton for punishment, if you will, and really try to push it, you got to be reasonable. Baby greens, not going to happen. It's just not. I mean, it's not. You can grow head lettuce for salad mix, but they're going to get smaller yields. We push hard, or I push hard for peppers and okra. If I have tomatoes and they're shaded, I'll get tomatoes. But I will have greens on my table. It's just an adapted version. It's going to be arugula. It's going to be mustard. I actually call it my hot summer mix because it's going to be spicy.
yeah,
But it's doable. It takes the mindset, man. You have to be ready for it because you're going to wake up and you're going to have to be out early and you're going to have to stop by like 10 or 11 and then maybe go back out at night. But you get to adapt your schedule, which is really cool because during the day, then you can take a break. You can spend time with family or friends or work on some other projects, but you don't have to be outside for, 100-degree weather. So,
yeah, getting out there in the middle, like after 10, 11, it's just freaking,
yeah,
and I think for people listening again too, like when you're trying to grow spring mix, for example, which is predominantly lettuce, you've got you're using a crop or a seed variety that can grow well in heat. It's been bred to continue to produce well in heat. But when you get to that 100-degree threshold, or really, I feel like above 96, 97, it struggles. And so your yields, even in the summer, just on spring mix, are going to be cut in half compared to the spring and fall. So that's why I love what you're doing, is getting creative of like, okay, well, what are other greens that I can grow so I can continue to have this crop? Because as we know, for small farmers, the greens, the salad mixes, like that's like, you got to have it. Like, I don't really know what else you're going to grow if you're going to make money, farming at
yeah.
this scale.
Yeah, no, it's an important point. We talk about cash crops and we talk about what to grow at a small scale and how to be profitable because you want to be sustainable. You want to be able to live off of it. And salad mix or lettuce or microgreens is a big part of it. And I mean, I like last weekend I sold 40 bags of salad mix. That was what I had. That was between 2 days, but I sold like 26, 27 on Saturday, and I cleaned the rest out on Sunday. But it's like that every weekend when you have it, and even when every farm has it, it's kind of like eggs and carrots. There's never enough. Everyone always wants greens. Everyone always wants eggs and carrots. Occasionally you get some pushes on other crops, but it's not like no one's going to come and buy 100 pounds of radishes at a market, even though they're good and they're delicious. You have to have a cash crop that's your consistent, and the flexibility of greens is good, but also you have to adapt your growing style. Like I use shade cloth.
Yeah.
I use shade cloth in summer, and I start putting my shade cloth over my lettuce in like late May, because we start like it's 90 degrees today, so it's barely March 5th and it's 90 degrees. And so we start getting up there pretty early. And, I went out and actually top watered my lettuce about an hour ago, and it's going to pop back. But I walked out there and I was like, it looks, it wilted a little bit, but it's good. It's just, you have to make those adjustments as the season changes, so that way you can stay in business essentially.
Yeah. No, and I mean that too. I think which I know you grow a lot of microgreens, and because I think microgreens for a while there was like this, like it was kind of this fad, I guess, so to speak.
Sure.
Like people were just growing microgreens, and but I feel like you're putting some of those hardier microgreens like pea shoots. Do you do sunflower?
I do. I do sunflower, and sunflower tests my patience every time I grow it.
I hate sunflower, growing sunflower.
But I will say with sunflower, it's not you, it's not me, it's the seeds. It's the seeds, and it's 100% on the seeds. Unfortunately, the seed cleaners, mad props to them. Sometimes they're just not good at sorting seeds, and that's unfortunate, because you'll get a bad batch, and if you buy more than like a 25-pound bag, you're going to be sitting on some bad seeds. So, yeah. I do grow sunflower. I grow pea. I grow a lot of broccoli and radish. But I grow different types of radish, so I get different colors. I do also grow them for restaurants. So I not only sell at farmers markets, but I'm able to offload microgreens for restaurants. And they did have that time where, they were kind of a fad. And I do know some farmers that just started growing with microgreens and then expanded into market gardening. I've got some really good people that I work with here in the San Antonio, New Braunfels area. Shook Farm, Sarah Shook, she started with microgreens and has just recently grown into a market farm. She's doing a great job out there. And, I started in 2017 with micros, but then got back into the market side of it and then brought them back. So there are still people out there that are growing just them, and hats off, but I want to grow more. I legitimately want to grow lots of greens and spring crops and vegetables other than just micros, but it is definitely a part of my business plan. I mean, I'm looking at my racks right now across the way, and I mean, I've got 4 full racks right now across from me. So
that's a lot.
They're producing. I mean, they're producing.
Yeah,
so they're a good chunk.
It's such a good like entry crop, because it can give you cash flow in a very fast time frame without a massive infrastructure cost.
Yeah.
So I do feel like it's a great place to start, and then it segues into market gardening. I know some people, that's all they grow. That's what I would go nuts if all I grew was microgreens, but some people absolutely love it. I don't like growing microgreens. Like it's just a crop I just do. I like to be working in the ground. I don't like it, but I know people love them. I grow them because they sell and people want them. And I thought they were going to.
I thought they were going to be a filler crop for me. I thought they were going to be a shoulder season crop. I mean, my original plan was to do them, move to our market style gardening, and then just use them when I needed a filler. And they took off. And it's based on your area. If there's a market for it, if someone can just grow microgreens and have that market, then great. But I would still, to your point, I'd want to grow more crops, because that's really what I want to do is, be outside, be in the sun, be in the weather. And I originally thought they were going to be a shoulder, and they just ended up being like one of our main crops, which is pretty interesting.
Well, and the beauty of it too, like you're taking some of those hardier microgreens that don't spoil as quickly or fast, and you'll add those into your spring mix or your greens mix as well, to help, especially in the summer, when yields are down on lettuce, to kind of help have some more product. Correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It gives me the flexibility, because the way I market it at the markets and to my consumers, is sometimes it's very heavy in sunflower and pea, and it's arugula and maybe some mustard greens. Still going to be a cool mix, but it gives me flexibility to put a little bit or a lot, or to go heavier with greens or heavier with micros. And so I can obviously ramp up micros very quickly if the heat takes out some lettuce, or we get some freak cold front that we just didn't prepare for. There's flexibility to adjust and adapt. So I definitely think it's a good thing to have, or at least know how to do, in case you need to play catch up. Because the weather and bugs are always a dynamic, and you guys out there know as well as I do. I mean, some of the bugs last year that we had were just pretty rowdy, and they'll take out a whole crop in no time. And so it's just like being able to grow quick baby greens, like in New Zealand, listening to Jody Roebuck. I mean, you have to have a bumper crop or something that you can do quickly in case of bad weather or emergency. And microgreens is just amazing crop. But I would always recommend to grow other things other than just micros.
Yeah. I mean, the more you grow, and I think that's why people start to grow a lot of crops, which I think at times for most people probably is a mistake as well, is being too narrow, but also going too wide, of like, oh, I'm going to grow 25 different vegetables. It's like the amount of time, like, you've got to focus on a handful of crops, unless you don't want to make money, or you just like to work for nothing.
Yeah, it's got to be 80-20, brother.
Yeah.
And even last year when I was in 2023, my first full-time year, I was playing with, I have probably 5 or 6 pounds of spinach seed that I'm never going to plant, because I just don't want to grow spinach anymore. And I bought like all these varieties. I was like, oh, red veins, oh, flamingo, oh, corvier. And I was like, oh, let's try. And I was like, oh, new spinach. And it's not for me. I struggle with germination, and it's just like, I tried to play with growing large bell peppers. It wasn't for me. I grow miniature, medium hot peppers because they do very well. Tomatoes, I don't grow slicers. I'm actually growing one variety this year as a test. It's a BHN 589. I don't know why they gave it that name, but that's what it is. And the rest I grow.
Is that the one that Sean Passera, Mindful Farmer?
Yeah. I saw him do it, and I was like, all right, I'll try it. I'll give it a try again. They're costly seeds, but I'm gonna give it a shot. See how they do. But I grow cherries and one Roma. That's it. Like cherry tomatoes and one Roma. But my variation is in my selection. So like I don't just grow red cherry tomatoes. I have.
James, you there? James, you there? Looks like James cut out for a minute. We're going to keep the recording going here and see if we can get reconnected. All right, we had some technical difficulties there, but we're back up and running. So James was talking about that tomato seed variety. I don't remember which one it was, but
that's okay.
I'll let you keep talking about it. So
yeah, so I don't get very extravagant with my crop selection. There's a lot of good farmers at the markets that grow 25 different crops, and they're awesome at it. And they have some really good space. There's big farms there also, and those people are awesome in it. But with small farms and with small land and not a lot of acreage or even any acreage, but dealing with square feet, I've got to produce things that move, and I've got to produce high turnover crops. So when it comes to my spring and summer selection, my varieties are basically in my tomatoes and peppers. So I've got about 10 or 12 varieties of cherry tomatoes and peppers that I grow. So my assortment comes in hot peppers and a couple of sweet peppers. So I grow lots of cayenne, a couple of habaneros, an early jalapeno, and then I grow, like this year I'm doing Jimmy Nardellos and a candy cane red for sweets. And I'm trialing 2 types of poblanos. One's done really well so far, but the other one has been spotty. So it's just as a test because I had a little bit of room. Cherry tomatoes, it's Sweet Million, Chadwick, Indigo, I'm doing Golden Spark or Gold Spark from Harris Seeds because the gold pair crack and they don't do well here. I'm actually not doing Sun Gold this year because again, cracking, and I don't grow them inside my tunnel. So I know my buddy Mike up in Dallas grows a lot of those, and he does it very well. I can't get them to do well here because of the amount of rain we get. So even when we don't get a lot, it then floods and then they split. So I try to get crack resistant or less prone to cracking style tomatoes and just keep an assortment of some colors in my cherry tomatoes.
Yeah,
so,
that color, I think the color is a good point. You know, I've had the same issue with the Sun Gold. I love it because like no one can buy or they've not experienced eating a Sun Gold unless they bought it from a farmer, because it's not a tomato you can ship. For that very reason, it splits really easily, and I've had that same issue. But I agree, man, with the color with tomato pints having a few different colors in there is just, it's gorgeous. You know,
it stands out. It stands out really well. You know, and also I don't want to separate them because like when I used to plant tomatoes, I used to label every tomato plant with tags, and I've got 75 in the ground right now. I'm putting another 100 in this week, and I'm probably going to put in another 200 on this lot, and then at least 50 to 100 on my other lot. So I don't want to have to label them and then harvest and separate, and that's a lot of extra time, you know. And a lot of what I do boils down to being able to streamline time and get things done efficiently without a lot of sorting. So I'd rather just throw them all in a bin or a harvest tote and then just package them up as they are. And only occasionally does someone go, hey, can I have all yellow, or can I have all of these really cool maroon and black ones? And I'm like, well, I'll try. But you know, usually the answer is unfortunately not, because I don't want to sort them, you know.
Oh, dude, I totally get that, man, 100%. So, what do you sell your salad mix, which I know it changes throughout the seasons? What are you selling that at price per pound? And do you do anything outside of a pound bag, or do you do half-pound bags? If so, what's the price on that?
So I sell my salad bags at $10 a bag. Occasionally I will do like a half bag for 6. But my weights are typically around that 12.5 to 13.5 ounces. I don't do full pounds.
Okay.
I use these long popcorn bags, so you get this really nice big bag of lettuce or whatever mix I have. It's a nice fair weight, and I've kind of based that off of talking to other farmers and seeing how they grow and what they're doing at markets and bag weights. And I've looked at, like, you know, 8-ounce bags of arugula going for, you know, $6, and then if they were to go with a full pound for like 12, I'm like, well, I'll sell a bag for 10, and it's going to have, you know, 5 to 9 different varieties, including microgreens. So the price point makes sense for me. The bags look amazing and they move, you know. And I've actually contemplated going up a little bit seasonally, just based on what's in it. You know, if it's going to have 3 different types of microgreens in it plus lettuce greens and stuff, it's got a higher value, and there is always a line for it. So I have to kind of stay within that $10 range, but there's occasionally when I've thought about raising it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because it's that wrestle of at what price point do I go to based upon the bag size. You know, because we do a full pound and a half pound, but I've played with the sizes before. You know, we do
I remember
a pound per 12, which you would be a 12 if you were doing a full pound in that bag.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a fair price. I mean, I know that's pricey compared to what people are paying at grocery stores, but that's a whole nother conversation, because the crap you buy at the grocery store is already slimy, and the flavor's terrible compared to what you're going to get from a farmer like you or I. It doesn't even compare. You know?
I will say what's good about the markets is the salad mix sells itself, and here's why. I don't have to talk about it, because I have people that are walking by saying buy his salad mix because it lasts you for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
You know, I've got a lady at the booth next to me that is just like, you got to try some microgreens, you got to try some salad mix, you know, you got to try some of the eggs if you can get them early enough, you know, because those people that walk around and purchase are like, oh, I've gotten this greens before. They might see me talking to somebody and go, try a salad mix. And so the mix sells itself, but then if I have to talk about it, I just talk about the longevity of the shelf life. You know, it will absolutely last you 2 weeks. You know, I had a guy tell me it lasted a month. He forgot about it, and he's like, oh, I still have salad. My concern with going too heavy on the bags, like a pound, is it seems that I have some regulars that will buy that 12-ounce bag, and then they can buy a bag every week. I don't want to see myself go too heavy and then they skip. And then with going lighter, I've also kind of just observed like it's more time bagging. I don't want to potentially sit on bags or someone get used to buying less when they're going through the pound. So I kind of had to do a lot of balancing and figuring out, and this just works for me. I only do half bags every once in a while, but I usually just keep it right at that 12 to 13 ounces, somewhere in that window. Yeah, depending on what's in the mix.
No, that's a good point, man, because your goal obviously with this is that people come back week after week to buy that product. And if you're at a pound, for some people that's going to last them, which I mean, naturally, even if 12 ounces for a single person, that may last them 2 weeks. But if you're doing a pound, or if you're bringing that down to like, let's say 12 ounces, then you could kind of get to that threshold where it's like they're going to come buy it every single week, which gives you consistent cash flow, this consistent sales, the list goes on. The pros of that. So that's a good argument for that size, man, honestly.
Yeah. It works, it works. So
so tell us a little bit. I know we've been having this conversation about carrots.
Yeah.
So you grow some carrots, but it's not a ton, correct?
Correct. I grow Napoli, and I try to grow Moonraker, and I only got a little bit off of them, but I grew them last season, and I was able to harvest them for summer carrots, and then I planted a whole bunch, and I just got some real weird germination. But I currently use the Earthway seeder, and then I also seeded some without the seeder as well. And so I was really trying to get really good germination from carrots after my first go, because I kind of lucked out with it and they did really well. And I've gotten kind of spotty germination on the last go, so I haven't had a really good run of it on the second and third go around yet. So
yeah, they're I know we've been talking about this all before this podcast, but gosh, man, carrots are so frustrating. And I know we just talked about this, but I think it'd be helpful for anyone else that's growing them. You've got multiple options when it comes to seeds. You can buy pellet, a lot of different varieties that are like really small seed. For instance, lettuce, you can buy pelleted, which I know you and we buy pelleted lettuce. And like most of the time, if it's small seed, I'm buying pelleted, but because carrot seed's really small. I've struggled with germination with the pelleted. But I just got a recommendation from Ray Tyler. They went to this years ago, is they just went to non-pelletized seed. Now they are using the Jang seeder, which is an expensive seeder, and it's very accurate. But it's something I'm going to try. Like after this podcast, I'm ordering some more. I'm ordering non-pelletized seed. I'm going to give it a try and run it through the Earthway. But I may be thinning carrots. I have a feeling I probably will be.
I worry about that even with the smallest plate. I know you can use beeswax to kind of plug some of the holes. I mean, I really want to grow carrots. I mean, I'm willing to try anything with the Earthway, and I'm willing to try some unpelleted seeds because I really want them on my table because they sell. I mean, people want them, and there's never enough. There's just never enough carrots. So
I know, man. They sell. I'm not giving up on them.
Yeah,
it's like lettuce, man. It's like I've yet to have carrots I can't move.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I can definitely move all the time. So I'm not giving up on it. I'm gonna just keep experimenting. But I've tried different depths on the Earthway and even direct seeding. The first time I just used the PVC and pressed them in, and it worked. And then I tried a seeder and pressing them in, and it was just like, okay. And then I did a whole seeder, like a whole row of just seeded, and I thought it was not the depth, and so I dropped the depth. I got half of it to germinate, and the other half just said nope. And so I'm going to keep trying it, man.
Yeah, it's one of those carrots, or I think one of those seeds that I think a lot of market farmers it just drives them nuts. It is so finicky, man. The old carrot seed.
What kind do you grow out there? I mean, I'm doing Napoleon Moonraker.
I switched to Bolero.
Okay.
Because that's what Ray grows, and mainly because it's a good storage carrot. Because now what we're trying to do is grow enough carrots in the spring that we can then store and sell all the way until late fall when we get our fall carrot harvest. That fall carrot harvest will take us through winter, and back to
Nice.
spring again, so that we can have carrots year round. That's what we're trying to get to. Definitely not accomplished it yet, but that's the goal.
Keep going. Just got to keep trying. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Um, but gosh, that's another great one. If you've got, the issue is obviously with carrots is just the space. You've got to have the space for it because it is in the ground a while. But
Yeah.
I feel like it does fetch a premium price. I mean, I forget what I sold. What do you sell your carrots at?
I sell them at five a bundle. So I make a pretty decent sized bundle depending on the size of them, and I sell them for $5, and they sell out every time.
So you're not
And
weighing them. You're not doing like, you know, 3/4 of a pound or whatever.
too much. It's an extra step. I just go out there with rubber bands. I harvest them, I band them, I put them all on a table, spray them all down as best as I can, get them in a cooler, and then we call it a day. And I reached out to other farmers. I was asking everyone else what they're selling their carrots for, and I got some ideas. And there's a larger farm, there's a couple people, you know, at some other markets that will sell them for cheaper. And hey, cool, but like I don't have any problem selling them at 5. And I think honestly, for the space and the time and the extreme value, I think you got to do that as a farmer, because the tops are also valuable. You know, some people want the tops and they cook them up and they make chimneys and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, especially if you're leaving tops on or you're going to a farmer's market. I would agree. I'd be doing bunches too, and just doing them for that amount. You know, we top ours because we sell them in the store and we put them in bags. But so we weigh them out for that purpose, and but we do the same price at 3/4 of a pound. But there's something beautiful, man, about walking to a farmer's market. You've got a table and with those carrots stacked up, and
Yeah,
I mean, I love when you see that at a market, man, because it's
it,
gorgeous, you know.
it looks good. You know, you make a pyramid out of them, or however you want to stack them up. You know, there's a buddy of mine down the way that had these really cool rainbow carrots, and they just look good. It's an eye catcher, and it brings people in.
Yeah. So what's the like? Kind of what's your vision, man, for the future, like of the farm? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, are you dreaming out 5 years of like, hey, what's my farm going to look like 5 years from now? Just kind of fill us in. What's your dreams, goals, vision
Yeah.
for the future?
So my first goal was to, you know, have a full year successful and financially successful, and I did that on year 1. You know, I set a goal for myself and I beat it, and that was pretty. I was really impressed with that, and so I want to continue to repeat that and grow the business. My current goal is to max out my lots where I'm at now. I'm going to be putting in 4 to 5 more rows on my expansion lot within the next 2 weeks, and I think with adding those rows, it's going to be 800 more square feet of grow space, give or take. So essentially, I'm managing like 3 lots. I've got my main grow space, the one across my property, and then the one across town. So for me, as far as managing the lots, I think right now it's going to be maxing out my current space without taking on too much new space, and see what I can make profit wise off of that. My goal for this year is to hit and exceed 75K, which is off of basically urban farming, is going to be pretty awesome.
Dude, yeah,
And
that's huge.
That's my goal. I mean, I'm pretty confident I can exceed that, but I want to at least hit that. And if I can get closer to that 100K mark off of just working off of like, you know, my 2.5, maybe 3 lots, then for me personally, I'm good. Like I'm good with that. What I want to do and what I want to really grow into while doing that is teaching more people how to do this and creating more farmers. You know,
Yeah.
I had to really search for information at the beginning. I didn't even find Curtis Stone until after I was already growing stuff in the ground. I had seen some of his videos, but I didn't find him until I was kind of already practicing. You know, I was able to network on Instagram, and I connected with Mike in Dallas. I started watching some other videos on YouTube. I actually started watching like Growing Your Greens, and I found Josh Satin eventually, M.I. Gardner, but they were doing like Growing Your Greens, and it's just a large garden. M.I. Gardner is just, you know, a lot of gardening stuff, and he does really good seed work up there. But until I found like you know, Never Seen Farms and Josh Satin, I didn't really have an example of a small scale and a consistent, like, you know, 2-acre farm. And then I found Curtis, and so I was able to put all this together. But I guess the point I'm getting at is there's not a lot of information about like teaching people how to grow in this climate in our area. There's not a lot of really specific information that teaches people how to be financially independent and successful at market gardening here without being behind a paywall. And I think that's necessary when you get to a certain extent, consulting, and that's all part of it. But there's not enough information out there telling people that they can just get started, and especially in our climate. And I really want to be able to teach it, and I want to be able to teach it and put out information via podcasts and down the line as well, one-on-ones. But my goal is to have eventually a lot where I can break up some farms potentially and just teach people how to grow, or have a big grow space, maybe pick up a piece of land and use it as a spot to teach people while I still grow there. So I want to create more farmers, man. You know, financial goals for me is to hit that 75 to 100K consistently year after year after year, and just honestly help create more farmers. I think that's my main goal, is just to really show people that it's doable and that you don't have to go into debt with land, and that you don't have to really stress yourself out. It's a beautiful life, you know, and it can be so impactful. And I mean, the people that are putting out the information, great. I mean, you're doing a great job with the pod. Mike's doing a great job up in Dallas. I mean, Josh sat and put out a free farm course on YouTube and Spotify. You know? So there are some people that are doing it, and they're doing it really well. And man, hats off to everyone else that just listens to people when they ask questions, because there needs to be more of that. And long term, I want to create more farmers. I want to help people see that it's doable. So
yeah, and it is. I think a lot of people, you know, think it's like, okay, well, I want to market farm, so I need to like go out and I mean, that's the typical, probably the first thought a lot of people have, but it's so doable even in an urban context like you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to go out and buy land, like, you know. And I know that, like, from my perspective, I have a little bit of acreage, but we didn't buy this home in this place strictly because we wanted to market farm. It was originally just to homestead. But there's some downfalls to like trying to go out and buy land. It's like when you're in an urban context, like you're a lot closer. And Joel Salatin talks a lot about this in his books.
Yeah.
You can farm. He's always like smaller acreage closer to the market center or closer to the city, because you got to think about the commutes, people coming to your farm, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
you know, I think that at the end of the day, it's like you got to start small. You got to get your feet wet, and there is a massive learning curve. Like,
yeah,
you know, for most people, it's like, yeah, year one, it's just there's so much to learn, and you've just got you got to make a lot of mistakes, and
for sure,
just learn. You know, like it's like there's just a lot to learn, but you can start and get going.
Yeah, and that's the part of it. You know, it's such a beautiful thing, you know, being able to grow your own food and be a farmer of any scale. You know, I mean, really shout out to the ones that are doing those large scale farms as well, because I mean, we need them also. You know, yeah. we need those larger scale 100,000 acre, you know, farms, because that's right now how the world is currently being fed. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. They're doing more than other people are that aren't growing. But market farming and small scale farming is going to definitely have a way in the future and have a big part to play. And I think there's a lot of people out there that just don't know how to do it, or are worried about how to take the next step or the next leap. And you know, another farmer and I we just launched a podcast about that as well, to start talking about that. You know, Sarah Shook from Shook Farms and we just started to put out some episodes just this week. So we want to be able to show people that you can do it. You know, you got to just start. Year one is tough sometimes, but yeah. It's harder if you don't know what to do and you have to figure it out when your livelihood depends on it. You know, if you have to try to grow food because you have to pay your rent, you're doing it wrong. You need you need to be able to grow food consistently and then set goals and be able to pay your bills afterwards. You know, you don't want to be dependent on something that might fail in any aspect. I mean, pick a job. You know, you can't become a plumber without doing some learning, right? I mean, you got to read some books, you got to go to a trade school a little bit. So it's all about kind of investing and doing a little bit of learning and a little bit of, you know, YouTube University and finding the right people and jumping at the right time. You know, I think that's a big part of it. So
yeah, I agree, man. I think that there's that level of getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
Without it being like you're solely dependent on that as your main income.
I think
it takes time. It's like anything else, you know. It's like, man, you're not gonna feel like you really are getting momentum until maybe year 3, 4, 5. Like it's just just part of the journey, but that's with anything, like you just said.
And the way I did it also, like, I mean, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I've been in restaurants since I was like 14 years old and a young lad. And before I was a farmer, I was in restaurants my whole life, and I learned a lot about business. And so I was able to learn about financials and operating numbers. And that gave me at least a little bit of a business acronym to be able to say, okay, I understand how to balance some books. But I was doing market farming, if you will, or growing small scale before I made the leap. I was only doing it 1 day a week on one of my days off, where I would try to spend 8 to 10 hours a day just growing food. And I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and then I set a financial goal, and then I made the leap. And I didn't just jump into it blindly. I was trying to study and find people, and it was only after having a full year of succession planting and growing where I didn't have any gaps. I always had something growing, and that's when I was like, I can do it. I can make the leap. But there was a lot of practice before.
Yeah.
And I really think that if you have acreage, use it. If you have the opportunity to have it, use it. If you got family that's willing to give you a slot, or a neighbor, take advantage of it.
100%.
The urban market farming and what we do here, it works here because especially right now, if I had to try to go find acreage of any kind right now, the housing market and the land market is crazy, and interest rates are crazy right now. So trying to buy land affordably, unless you're going to go far out of the city, there's not very much of it. So it works in my context to do what I'm doing, but there's a lot of it here in Texas. In Texas, you don't have to buy land to grow food. There's so many different avenues of it. But if you have the accessibility to it, man, I would say do it. Like, if you got family, friends, if you can get it, or you've already had it, and now you're getting into farming or market gardening, yeah, dude, use land for sure. Use it if you got it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to say that, like, there is land available to where you don't have to go out and buy land. I mean, me and Michael Bell were talking about this last week, because he was on last week on the podcast, and it's like, even like, let's just say someone that's listening is in the suburbs. It's like, look around, like, guaranteed there's I mean, depending on where you're at, but like, there's probably some churches that have large lots, and they're paying someone to literally mow it. I mean, there's options, I think, and that's what I love about the urban farming thing, is like, you got to get a little creative, but it's not hard,
Right. Right.
You just got to find some lots close to you to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm off my main street. I'm off O'Connor Road in San Antonio, for anybody that knows San Antonio. And I mean, just coming down to my road, I mean, I passed a handful of churches, and there's one lot I've been watching for years now. It's owned by a church. It's got a big sign, but they've never done anything with it. There's like a little gazebo in the corner, and they just mow it, several times a year. So there's opportunities out there. I mean, most churches, I think Mike made the point of, most churches buy land to have a huge footprint, and it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
Right. And then they have this grass that they have to mow, and that's prime opportunity. I mean, there's schools and all kinds of areas that you can just look at. I mean, old neighborhoods have big lots, and most people don't want to cut their grass, especially in the spring and summer when it's warmer here. So there's an opportunity to grow food in the city without having to purchase land, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing, man, and as a friend, I enjoy always talking with you about farming, being able to, call each other and vent about frustrations, but just love what you're doing and the impact you're having, and excited just to see what continues to come for you as you have an impact, and not only with your farm, but just being able to educate others. And that's a huge passion of mine, is just teaching others. How do we educate more people to grow food, whether that's just at a homestead, backyard garden scale, or, hey, I actually want to, jump into this market farming, small scale ag thing. So anyways, I just want to say thank you, brother. And I enjoy our friendship, and just appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
Yeah. Likewise, man. You're doing a great job with it, and congratulations on that milestone on YouTube, brother. That's awesome. And you're doing it with the pod, bro. I mean, that's putting out the information is what it's all about. So I'm glad we get to talk and connect, because it's always a fun time, man. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man.